We are finally here. It is the final mock draft, and I've been working on this for a while, but a couple of prerequisites before we begin. This mock draft is by no means my mock draft. What do I mean by that? This mock draft is what I truly believe the New York Jets will do based off of Joe Douglas's tendencies from what we've been hearing and what has been speculated about this team. Now, I'm going to be the first to say this, and I think I will make a couple cases. This isn't my mock draft in terms of this is who I would pick for the Jets. When I do these mock drafts, I go by who I realistically think the team is going to select. And because of that, this mock draft might be a little bit different than some of the other ones. This one might be a little bit more unique, but this is my opinion of what the New York Jets will do for the mock draft. So without further ado, the New York Jets are on the clock. There has been a lot of speculation this week about the Jets trading up for a playmaker, and I do believe it. So I've heard the rumor about Marvin Harrison. I don't think the Jets get that opportunity, but I do have them trading up in the first round. Now, again, I can see a couple of scenarios where they trade back. I will get into all those in a minute, but here is what I officially have. I have the Jets trading with the Atlanta Falcons, who have the 8th pick. I have the Jets swapping pick number 10. I have the Falcons getting the Jets' late 4th round pick, the one that was used in the compensation for George Fant. And I have them getting a 2025 third rounder from the Jets. This is very important because if you remember, Bryce Huff will likely return a third round compensation pick. So basically, the Jets will not lose a third round pick next year. So without that, who do the Jets take at number 8? Well, according to my mock draft, I do not have Marvin Harrison up there. I do think the Jets would prefer Malik Neighbors, but I do have him off the board. So instead, they will draft Rome Odunze out of Washington. I just believe that the Jets want a big outside playmaker. Odunze is one of the few guys that's ready to step right in. He gives Mike Williams a chance to recover a little bit more smoothly from the ACL, gives the Jets a little bit more time. I don't think he's as explosive as the previous 2 receivers, but I do think he is an ideal number 2. Great body control, great route runner. And while I love Neighbors, in a weird way, I think the Jets love Neighbors' athleticism. But Odunze to me is the guy that probably will have the bigger impact right away. Love the size, love the catch radius, great tactician. He's not overly a burner, but is really just a great receiver and can do everything incredibly well. I think the Jets are not going to chance him getting to number 10. And I think the way they look at it is we're getting a third round pick back as compensation next year. This is go up 2 spots to ensure that we get one of the truly great wide receivers in a loaded class. And again, this is a loaded class, but from everything you are reading that the Jets want a playmaker. And I do think that. Now, a couple of options here because I love you guys. So with this 10th pick, here's a couple of scenarios I see playing out. I'm going to go really in depth here. If the top 3 receivers are gone, or if the Jets can't trade up, I think they'll stay at 10. If the top 3 receivers on the board are off the board and Brock Bowers is there, I do think they select Brock Bowers. I do not believe this team will trade up for Brock Bowers, but if he is there at 10 and the other 3 receivers are gone, they will take Bowers. If it comes down to a tackle, it feels like the Jets have a couple they really like. I think they would ideally try to trade out at 10. Even if Brock Bowers is on the board at 10, they still might consider it. But in this scenario, with 4 quarterbacks going within the top 7, I don't see really Joe Alt getting past 6 or 7 as well. A few months ago, I would have loved for the Jets to trade for Joe Alt. It doesn't seem like that. I think the Jets have a couple of contingency plans in place. And again, this is what I believe the Jets are going to do. I think they made it clear they want to have a more explosive offense. I think this is a player Aaron Rodgers would love to have right away, even though he's a rookie receiver. Everyone you talks about Rome Odunze says he is a great presence and acts like a veteran. So I think that this makes a lot of sense. And again, if Odunze isn't there at 8, I could see the Jets waiting for Bowers at 10. I don't see them trading up for Bowers. I don't see them trading up for tackle. If Marvin Harrison Jr. is on the board at 5 or 6, I think they will try to get up there, but I don't think they'll have the ammunition. Neighbors is the wild card. Depending on what happens with the quarterback position, could the Giants or Titans maybe trade out 6 or 7 for Neighbors? I just get the feeling they'd rather take him than trade back. But overall, the Jets get a dynamic playmaker with the 8th overall pick after trading up. Now, this is going to be the keystone pick in the draft, is the third rounder for the Jets, where the Jets are picking number 72. Now, they can go a couple of very different options here. I've done in the past them trading up from round 3 into round 2. I also could see now with this trade up, maybe the Jets, with the deepness of this class, try to propel back. They're at the top of that third round. Maybe there's a good defensive player a team wants. Maybe they can propel back into the 80s or 90s while picking up an additional pick. I think ideally in a perfect world, the Jets would love to trade up and get a tackle in round 2. The problem is I don't think they have the ammo, and they want to keep that top 4th round pick for a specific reason, which I will get into. So in this scenario, I have them staying at pick 72. I have them staying there in the 3rd round, and I think you will be surprised. Do they go tackle? Unfortunately, they do not. I would love to get tackle. I'll get into the tackle position in a little bit. Instead, I have them going with a surprise pick here. Theo Johnson, the tight end out of Penn State. Now, there's a couple reasons I can see this happening. One, the Jets seem very interested. When I talked to Dom C last week, and you can check out that video on the page, he made it clear that not only do the Jets send brass to pretty much every possible workout with Johnson, but they've even sent their tight end coach to work out with him specifically. This seems to be a guy that they really like. And when you really think about Johnson, he kind of fits an in-betweener. He's a better, probably pass catcher than Jeremy Ruckert, but he's also a better blocker than Tyler Conklin. And in this scenario, I think the way the Jets will rationalize this is they're getting another playmaker, and they can come out of the first 2 days of the draft and say, we ended up getting one of the top 3 receivers in this talented class, and we ended up getting what many would say is a top 3 tight end. For me, Johnson is second on my board for tight end. I don't think there's going to be a run on tight ends like last year. There's so many receivers and offensive linemen that are going to go in round 2. I see Johnson being available in round 3, and I just get this feeling that by the time we get here, he's going to be so much further up on the board than a tackle at this point or a guard that I think the Jets are just going to bite the bullet and draft Theo Johnson here. And again, can come in, make an impact, could maybe even be a dynamic duo with Ruckert going forward. You improve that tight end room. You give Aaron Rodgers another weapon. You give this offensive line another blocking option. So there's a lot to like about this pick when you really dive into it. And I just think the Jets are not going to pass up on the value. And I did say there was a very important reason why they didn't trade that top 4th round pick, because we see it all the time. There's always great prospects that make it through the first 2 days of the draft. They're sitting there at the top of the board, and maybe it creates great value. Maybe the Jets will look at it and say, this is such a deep class. Maybe we can get a 5th and a 6th back for that 4th round pick, trade back and get some prospects. But I have the Jets staying pat with their 4th round pick, and I have them going with a quarterback, more specifically Michael Pratt out of Tulane. I do think that if you had to ask me today, Pratt is the Jets' number 1 choice. I do think Jordan Travis is a backup option in case Pratt goes. I think there's been a lot of buzz around Pratt, maybe getting into day 2 of this draft, although it tends to seem like in the past, quarterbacks that we kind of look in that 2nd or 3rd day tend to fall to the top of the 3rd day of the draft or the 4th round. I think Pratt's going to be there. And honestly, I think he fits what Robert Saleh wants in a quarterback. He wants a quarterback that maybe doesn't have the biggest arm, but is a good athlete, can make quick decisions, and really works in a West Coast system where he gets the ball out quick and has good short to intermediate accuracy. There's a lot I like about Pratt's game. And to me, this is the perfect situation. And once again, this is another pick where, yes, the Jets could go offensive line, but I think they're going to look and say, we get a developmental quarterback that could maybe be an eventual starter for us. I think the opportunity is too great there, and it's an opportunity the Jets don't want to miss up. Because, again, I do think Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas, they know they have to win this year, but they also want to plan for the long term. And I think you're going to see, especially with these picks on day 3, they are thinking for the long term. So now the Jets, after the Zach Wilson trade, have switched the draft capital up a little bit. They now have 2 6s and a 7. While I could see them maybe trying to use the earlier 6 to go back and get a late 6 and early 7, I have them staying pat for the next 3 picks. So what are they going to do? Will they finally address the offensive line? No, another prospect that the Jets have seemingly had their eye on is Nathaniel Watson, the linebacker from Mississippi State. The linebacker position has been great for the Jets. The thing is, CJ Mosley's getting up there. That contract is soon going to be off the books. And you look at this team, they're going to have to make a tough decision where Jamian Sherwood's coming to the end of his contract. I think they've seen nice progression, but this team needs a long-term answer at linebacker. And when you look at Watson, he reminds me so much of Quincy Williams. Such a fast player, is a bullet off the edge, flies around with Wild Bandit. He's very raw. But you look at the speed, you look at the athleticism, and you look at the ferocity he plays with. He will fit this defense like a glove. And when you look at some of these defensive prospects that I see here on the board at this point, there's a lot of projects. I think some teams are scared at this point, but I think the Jets with this defensive staff wouldn't be scared and start to think about the linebacker position long term. Another position, surprisingly, is the cornerback room. So in the 6 rounds, I have the Jets going north of the border to the CFL to take Quantez Stiggers. I think that Stiggers is a really good player. Interesting route. Didn't really go to college. Went straight to the CFL. A lot of great athleticism. You watch his tape. You can see the speed that he has. You can see that he's a very raw player. And again, part of it's not getting a ton of game experience, just being kind of thrown in there. This to me is one of those like Watson, a guy where you look at the athleticism and the upside, but you're not really sure. More than Watson, even, he's got a lot of rawness to his game. But really, this could be a great redshirt opportunity because here's the thing. The Jets' cornerback room is going to be very different after next year. They're going to have to pay Sauce Gardner a record-breaking contract. They're not going to be able to pay all three. And if I had to bet today, they would pay Sauce and Michael Carter because Michael Carter is younger, plays a slot position. As much as I love DJ Reed, I think DJ Reed could hit that market again, still in his 20s, and get paid like a team's number one corner and really have a great opportunity. So the Jets have to start thinking long term. Stiggers really fits that outside role. I think you can develop him. You have to start looking at long-term corner options. And to me, this is a good swing right here. And final pick is Mr. Irrelevant for the Jets. And finally, I have them going offensive lineman. And again, going north of the border, Giovanni Manu, the offensive tackle of British Columbia, a freakish athlete, runs a sub 540 at 6'8" and 340 pounds, is incredibly raw, but this is someone that I do think could play at the next level, but will need some time to develop. And I get it. The Jets, you wanted some more tackles, but here's my thought process on the offensive line before people start blowing up the comments that I am ignoring the offensive line. I'm not ignoring the offensive line. I just get this feeling that the Jets have already made a decision. If a great offensive lineman there is early, they will take him. But I just get this feeling that they've already kind of had a wink-wink deal with David Bakhtiari to be their swing tackle. I think that they like Carter Warren and Max Mitchell more than maybe the fan base does and wants to continue to grow those players because, again, they're still young offensive linemen. And I almost get this feeling that there's another offensive guard that they like out there in free agency that they're going to try to get after the draft. But the thing is, I know it's a risk, and I know personally, once again, I will say this, I think the Jets should invest with at least 2 offensive line in this draft. But the way the board fell in this draft and the way the Jets have been talking, I think they're going to come to the board every time and see that the playmaker outweighs the offensive lineman, the lean playmaker. I think that after the draft, they'll try to find some more veteran offensive line pieces. And again, I think that they're high on Carter Warren. I think that they also still believe in Max Mitchell a bit. So they don't want to completely stunt their growth as well. But again, it's a huge risk. That is how I see this falling. But you look at the theme right here, a lot of offensive playmakers early, really going and making sure they get one of the top 3 receivers, getting one of the top 3 tight ends, addressing the offensive line with a developmental player later, addressing some future needs at the defensive side of the ball, and of course, hopefully, trying to find the quarterback of the future. That is going to do it for our mock draft. Let us know what you have to think about this. And of course, we will be here after the first round to give our thoughts on the Jets' first round pick. We will also be back at the end of round 3 to go over all the picks the Jets made, all the deals they made, and go over with you guys and break everything down. So make sure you like and hit that subscribe button because you're not going to want to miss any of that coming up. We have so much more to do with the draft, but that is it. Our final 7-round mock draft for the New York Jets here in 2024. Will my picks be correct? Who will the Jets select on night 1? Stay here to see all the latest and greatest on the New York Jets only on Rich Sports Talk.